Welcome, everybody. Thanks for your assistance. We are about to begin our assembly to discuss past terms of this affair historically consistent between the Mexican government and the Zapatist group. And here we are, international. Here I am in representation of CONAPA and CONAI, both of organizations that it's about to mediate this problem and try to initiate a negotiation and to get a resolution for this. So let's hear the indigenous group.
Okay, so I'm representing the Tzeltal people, which is a group of people down there in the region of Chiapas. And we are in favor of the Zapatist group being in Chiapas because we feel, well, this group feels as like the Mexican government has been ignoring them or disempowering their culture because most of the resources that they generate and give up to the government, they don't receive the same amounts back. And their language and their culture, it feels like it's coming second to Spanish and to Mestizo and Mexican culture. So the Zapatist group is giving a voice to the Tzeltal people, according to them, even though some of the Tzeltal people feel like they have been displaced from their homes. Most of them, according to a research by the University of Colima, feel like they are being more heard by this group than by the government. And that's why they mostly align with their values.
Also, as well, I am representing the Tecos group of Chiapas as well. And we also have, considering that through time, the Mexican government has never really supported us or provided us the tools in order that we can develop our culture, preserving our traditions, preserving our language, and preserving our customs. We also have placed our trust instead in the Zapatist group, as they have been the only ones in the recent years that have shown support, has shown protection to our people and to our development, and have respected our culture.
I'm from IGUA, which is the International Work Group for Indigenous Affairs. I would also like to comment about how Mexico is the fourth among the world's most dangerous countries for defenders' rights, which in 2017 there were 31 murders, the majority of which were activists involving the indigenous environmental causes. So a lot of the indigenous people are suffering because these demands and these articles that were created in 1996 with the Zapatista National Liberation Army are not being recognized. So people are suffering because of this.
As part of the representation of Mexico, I would like to say that we're in favor of cultural diversity of any indigenous people here in Mexico, but we're against violence. We're in favor of the security in the country, but also we want to remark that the security is imposed by the government and not other people, only the people that works for the government. So that's our position here. And we really want to talk and to understand every point here, but we are really in favor of the diversity, the cultural diversity here in the country, because we're one country, we're Mexicans, and we all form part of the same country.
Okay, thank you so much for your sayings. But we cannot move forward without considering both parts. We cannot move forward without thinking the past or the historicity between the conflict. And let's take a look from past experiences that in which even both organizations in which I am in representation have been involved and included, and nothing has changed too much since then. And reforms and many laws that has been displayed, even though from federal functionals has been disproved in order to include this group or in general indigenous people to our legislation and to make them feel part of country. So how first of all how the Mexican government for now on, like for real, wants to involve those people. For example, you're talking about security, and but what about your current legislation for militarizing the country, or this system that is currently going through the like Candona jungle, that it's moving all the people, all indigenous people from Chiapas to look for new places so the Mexican government can build their new train that is supposed to improve the economics and works for people for them, but how is it that through those actions you are really involved in them and not fighting against them?
Yeah, so one important point here is that the train, well, if you know about corruption in Mexico, like there's an organization thing that it's the anti-corruption something from Mexico, and this organization, if we have like a plan or something that we have to build, like or in this case the train, there's a specific point that it's needed to be provided to build the train. So in this case, like all these points have passed, so we will have like favorite things that will come to this zone that is in the Selva La Condesa, the Condesa jungle, sorry. So in terms that we're not moving anybody, like maybe people that was close will just fear from the noises of building, but this train will support economy to the country and all the people that is living around from this train. That's why we're building this train, because Mexico has a lot of culture, right? So with this train, we're going to help in economical way, like the tourism that is in this zone. So that's why we're building. In terms of security, if we have more money, like people will be more secure financially, right? So that's why we're building this train, to encourage tourism in this incredible zone that is La Condesa, jungle La Condesa.
What does from the Zapatista clan or indigenous people in general, how would you like to feel included, or which action must be taken so you can during the current legislation and globalization, because it's not the same as 20 years ago, how would you like to be involved and to feel that you're participating in this country?
Well, at least the group of the Tzetzales Tzetzal people, they think that as a group, they want to have their own government. We want to have our own government rather than being directly included in the Mexican government, as we feel our government differs widely. So even if maybe in our statal government or municipal government be included, but we do not actually want to be part of a large institution that encompasses everything, because we see it as kind of erasing our culture and becoming a monolith, if that makes sense.
And just to add a little bit to what she just said, I would like to say that like 99% of impunity rate cases in Mexico of human rights violation particularly affect indigenous persons. So by not letting them apply their own laws, their own state, the Mexican government is like hurting them a lot. And also with the COVID-19, we can see how these indigenous people and their own communities protect each other because of their marginalization and discrimination. They didn't go to, a lot of indigenous people didn't go to centros de salud, sanitary centers. They, in between them, they communicated everything they had to know about the SARS-CoV-2, the COVID-19 pandemic, and in their native languages, they restricted their movements in and out of the territories to not be infected of this sickness. And you can see how this worked for them without the Mexican government affecting it.
Okay, so
and but as history shown us, before the Zapatist movement arrived, us indigenous people, we were not even in the map. We're not even in the radar. We're not even considered. And also in the recent years, as we have seen, contiguous communities as the Oxchuk in Chiapas, as they have tried to do to adhere to the traditional system and become an auto-deterministic government. They normal procedure, and it took for them like years and a lot of barriers in order to do things by the structured Mexican government. So that's why we refuse to work with the government as long as they keep their process as bureaucratic as they have kept them.
okay, so we're facing a real grounding problem of discrimination, segregation, and in many ways against this population, and not only them, but many other indigenous groups that are in Mexico. but this one is most relevant during these times because of their opposition. So listening both of parts, we say that we have a conclusion that both of them are wants to win by their own terms. So, but in the end, there's an agreement that can be done. But if we consider what we have from both parts of what they each want, we cannot, well, for example, in this problem regarding COVID, so we have Mexico has national systems of security and dignity for life, health insurance and stuff like that. That healthcare, thank you, that you can access to them as long as you're a citizen or declared citizen. So if the group wants to rule by their own and with their own laws, that's something against them, and even for territorial matters that can be done. But what we must to assure here between the government and the group is that there is no fight against each other. In the end, both of you are Mexicans that must to think that there's no one group or another, and marking the difference between you is what is making the wrong. So let's say that if we live in a country where there's a difference between, oh, I am an indigenous group and I am marking myself or signaling myself as different, I'm just a citizen part of the group that is living in this situation, or I have my own beliefs, my own culture that I want to share, and not for that I have to be recriminated or being part of this segregation of historically. I think that the main problem is that, like, making a difference between what is one thing and another, and not just accepting that there are different things, but in the end we are people. So what does the government and the groups want to say about to finalize?
So I think that something that you said was very important, that we should see each other as people first. But I would also like to emphasize that most indigenous peoples feel already marginalized. So when you say to someone to see themselves in the same level to someone that has never seen them as the same, I think that can be really hard. And also assimilation can also be really hard. So maybe an easier agreement would be having this like state between a state. So Mexico is still Mexico, but letting people choose what they want their land to be ruled as.
Okay, so what if we reform the current law, but for real, not as it has been occurring the past years, and involve these laws as long as they fit with the current constitution and with universal rights? As long as they fit with them, they can be part as a of the current Mexican laws with the terms of you both of you discuss, so you can enjoy both of worlds.
Yeah, it sounds fair. Like, so in Mexican law, we have like the representation in how do you say, like we have the state, and then we have it's not cities, it's municipios. So we have this part, so we can add municipal locations. We have municipal location in Mexico. So in municipal location, we can add like the indigenous group, not as a municipal location, but like separate from the law and have this representation apart from the municipal location already established by the law and the Mexican government, that this new part of the indigenous group can just be added and have more representation in terms of financial support and everything like that.
I would just like to add that as long as the Mexican government does what they say, because they, in 1996, in the treatment, they say they would go with the San Andres Lazaris agreement in February 1996, but they like didn't recognize it at the end. So the indigenous communities try to made them with the National Supreme Court, but they were unsuccessful in forcing the government to comply with the treaty. So the Mexican government would have to comply with the treaty this time and the changes in it.
Yes, so this time the agreement might include, we're going to continue with these conversations, but if the Mexican governments or one of each parties do not accomplish what is established right now during this agreement until the next reformation, you both are agreeing that it's going to be punishment for not for not accomplishing what it's said. And I give this session finalized.